Welcome to the New Heights Show on Education. I'm Pamela Clark, founder and director of the New Heights Educational Group, and I'm here with David Smith, the founder of Silicon Valley High School, who has helped us get these podcasts produced and delivered to you.
Yes, Pamela, when we saw the great things that you and your army of volunteers were achieving at New Heights, we wanted to get involved. We're happy to work with you to leverage the internet and make quality education accessible and affordable to everyone, everywhere.
Thank you, David. We appreciate Silicon Valley High School helping us to get these podcasts out to the hundreds of thousands of listeners from all over the world. So I hope you enjoy the show.
In this week's episode, we will discuss education reform on mission.
Hello, everyone. This is Danielle Washington coming to you live from Ms. Buffy Williams' office. We're just sitting around thinking about life and trying to become better people tonight, so check us out. Welcome back. You're on the air with Buffy Williams, and you have been listening to the New Heights Show on Education. We have been discussing the show's purpose on mission.
Good evening. This is your host, Buffy Williams, and you're listening to the New Heights Educational Group, the New Heights Show on Education. Tonight's topic is lifelong learners. Is lifelong learning a good idea, and what is lifelong learning? A recap on last week's show, we discussed steps for parents to consider in selecting a school for their child. On tonight's episode, we're going to explore lifelong learning and the future and what part it plays in our culture. So join in the discussion with us and call us at 917-948-7542 or drop your comments in the chat or tag us on social media using the hashtag NHEG or post your comments on Twitter at Buffy_Awaken or on Spreaker, Instagram, or YouTube. Remember, my New Heights fellow host, Erica Hansen shows airs on Thursdays at 2 o'clock p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 1 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. I know that, again, we are in the process of dealing with the ramifications of COVID-19 and also dealing with a lot of other issues that are, I guess, at this point, global issues for us as far as race relations are concerned. So I want to, again, just take a moment and us preparing for lifelong learners. This particular time in history is definitely giving us a different perspective on life and the things that we should be learning and the examples that we should be setting for others in this particular time. So I just want to take just a short, brief moment, and I'd like for you to join in with me in thinking about all the sacrifices that others have made for those who are dealing with the pandemic that we're dealing with right now, those who are putting in extra time to make sure that our loved ones are cared for, and all those who are out there trying to make sure that we are safe, and just remember them in your thoughts and your prayers. So we'll just take a moment. Thank you. So in thinking about a lifelong learner, one of the things I did with my research, and I want to go ahead and let you know where my sources are coming from. I have an article from the Forbes magazine, also Oxford Handbooks and the Art of Education. But I also did some research. I love TEDx. And one of the episodes was regarding why be a lifelong learner? And one of the examples that she used, and I thought it was a beautiful analogy, she used a symphony conductor. And she spoke about, sometimes, as with me, there are people who have a natural affinity to try different things in life and to see if, those things are something that they truly have a deep interest for. And so I've kind of fall into that category. And she said one of the things that she explored was once she started participating in all these things that she really liked to do, she started to question herself as to, well, if I am exploring all of these areas, am I an expert in anything? But when she went to the symphony, she realized that in watching the conductor was not the greatest violinist or a horn player or any of those things, but she was able to seamlessly orchestrate everything because she had a vast knowledge of each instrument. And it was a beautiful blend of all of the instruments together. And if anybody has listened, you can appreciate that. It doesn't have to be the symphony. It could be any form of music. But you can appreciate what it takes for a producer or someone to seamlessly put those things together. And so I thought that was a beautiful analogy of lifelong learners. And so we learn things, and we know that in this lifelong process, it's an ongoing process. But when you think about lifelong learning, it's more of a voluntary thing. It's something that either you do for personal development or for professional development. And for those in education particularly, there are, and with most fields, definitely with the counseling field that I'm in and most professional fields, there's a thing called professional education or continuing education that you do that's for professional development. But when we're thinking about lifelong learners, we're thinking about something that you're self-motivated to pursue for personal development, not necessarily something that definitely could benefit your career because it teaches you that the things that you try, it's going to take practice. You may fail at something, but if you continue to do those things, and I think it was Erickson that said if you do something for 10,000 hours that you can learn to be good at something. And so it also kind of debunks the myth that I do believe that there are people who have exceptional gifts in life. And so like Mozart and Chopin and those type people have particular talents, but I do believe that if you work at something that you can become better and better over time. And so that's kind of the premise of lifelong learning. It's kind of finding what your passion is or things that you're slightly interested in, and that can run the gamut of, anything from, let's say if you are interested in history, you just might want to know more about a particular time in history, and you may pick up a book or you may watch a documentary on a particular thing. But on the other end of that spectrum, you could potentially want to teach history and get your PhD in history. So you could go anywhere along that spectrum and still become a lifelong learner. And some of the things that we learn are sometimes there are natural traits that we have, and sometimes we might not be naturally inclined to go in that area. Another example for me, I'm not what you would consider an athlete. So I wanted to do one of the things that I had an interest in kind of being a lifelong learner. I wanted to do a 5K run. Why that came to me, I do not know, because I was not a lifelong athlete, but I did want to do it. And I knew that there were other people out there who were like me, who weren't in terrible shape, but they weren't in the best shape. And I couldn't necessarily sign up to do a 5K run that next weekend. But so what I did was I did some research, of course, and there was this thing called, it's pretty popular now, it's called Couch to 5K. And so you start off basically walking a minute, running a minute, walking a minute and running a minute. And it takes you through these different intervals until you get to the point where you can run a 5K. Well, First of all, I didn't realize 5K wasn't 5 miles. So in the research, that was enlightening. And so once I learned that, I was quite happy. But it was still a challenge, so I still had to do it. But one of the things is that once I was able to accomplish that, it made me see that I could accomplish other things. And in general, it just made me a happier person. And so that's kind of the thing with lifelong learning. You have to figure out, if this is something that you're motivated to do, because you have to be committed to do it in order for you to improve at it or even understand how it's going to enhance you as a person and potentially enhance you in your career as well. And so you look at things that are not necessarily things that you have a natural affinity for. But also in looking at the research that I looked at for this particular segment, one of the things that was very intriguing to me was that there are 758 million people globally who cannot read or write. But the importance of lifelong learning is that also 65% of the jobs that our children are going to potentially participate in are not created yet. And so if we think about those two spectrums, we have this large segment of people who can't read and write, right? And then we have our children who are going into this area where, these jobs haven't been created yet. And we think about the field of lifelong learning. Well, we've always kind of delved into that because we have vocational learning. We have people who learn just from watching other people. We have craftsmen. We have people who have a natural talent for different things, maybe growing crops or maybe it's woodworking, whatever that is. Those segment of people can thrive sometimes better than those who are formally, because when we look at lifelong learning, we're talking about informal teaching. So those people sometimes thrive more through that informal setting. And so when you couple that with your formal learning, it just becomes more of an exciting part of your life. And so it doesn't leave anybody out when you think about lifelong learning. It doesn't matter, that you don't have your master's degree or you don't have your bachelor's degree. If you're looking at lifelong learning, if you're willing to put in the time and the effort that it takes in order to learn something new that you're excited about, something that could potentially benefit you, benefit your family, benefit your community, or something that's just fun for you, because essentially that's why I got into this volunteer radio hosting thing, right? It's because I had an interest for it. And so there was a learning curve. I had to learn things that I didn't know. And so these are the things that are exciting. Okay, no, I'm not technically trained in it, but I can still learn those skills. And that's with anybody. So it comes with self-motivation, and you have to make it a priority. These things you have different levels. There are people who don't necessarily have a growth mindset for changing their characteristics of how they've naturally, come up, and they feel like maybe they're stuck in a certain way and they have a fixed mindset. But with lifelong learning, of course, you have to have a growth mindset because everything is naturally changing. And you have to look at things that are your personal interests and your personal goals, and you want to improve upon that. And that can, in turn, improve your self-confidence. But on tonight's episode, we are talking about lifelong learning and how it can make you a happier person, and it doesn't necessarily require any particular skills. It just requires you to want to achieve something and shifting your mindset in a way that will open you up to lifelong learning and ways to cultivate that. And you can always keep a book with you. You can make a list of the things that you want to learn, and you can find smarter friends, which is something that definitely can help your growth